But do you guys believe in demons?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
You do.
Yeah.
What do you think a demon is?
A dark spirit.
Yeah, spirits. The Bible says that they they can be attached to you. And so it's energy. We're going to get into theoretics here.
Yeah.
But everything's energy, right? And energy isn't lost. It's just transferred. Energy doesn't disappear. And there's a theoretical physicist in the show who's at Oxford, and I feel like he's the most brilliant man I've ever sat with.
What's his name?
Ard Louis.
Okay.
And most of his stuff didn't make the show because it was 6.5 hours at that point. But he says this brilliant line, he goes, everything in your body outside of hydrogen and helium is stardust. Like we're cooked up in the furnace of stars. And so he talks about energy transfers, and it'll end up going somewhere, all this material. But if everything's energy, why can't there be bad? There's bad energy. There's good energy. If you believe in the biblical structure of power. And so we had a really interesting moment with Victor Marx, a brilliant friend of ours, and he's on the front lines of the battle with CSAM in the U.S., which is child sexual abuse material.
Is that's not the dude who can flip the guns around?
Yeah, that is.
That's him?
Yeah.
He did it to Nathan.
He did it to me, yeah.
Bro, that guy's a gangster.
He's a beast. If you ever want to talk with him,
I would love to talk with that guy. You've seen that video, right, D? Where the guy just stands there.
Yeah.
Yeah, let us
"You're dead."
know. We'll plug you into his group.
Oh, yeah. He's cool as shit.
But he prayed over both Chris and I, and he's like, hey, I don't want to get too much into the weeds because it was a gnarly story. But he's like, yeah, I'm gonna pray, and I'm gonna call out if you have any demons. And I was like, kind of, it's not, it isn't much. But like as soon as he started praying, my veins would pulse up and down, and I was watching them just like bubbles moving through my veins, and then my eyebrows started twitching so fast, and the moment he finished that prayer, everything went black, like super calm, and he's like, okay, everything is going to change after this, and sure enough, like full systems of my life just started collapsing. Like people turning on me, like it was crazy. And I'll leave it at that. But like I believe I had 5 demons attached to me.
5? Oh, you counted them.
Yeah. Oh, it was very specific. His prayer is very specific.
Interesting.
And it's about letting go. So, he's like, say what comes to mind. And I was always like in the beginning battling it, because I'm like, no, that's not it. That's not it. And then as soon as I started talking, he would ask me more questions, and it just started going. And he's like, I've had people lunge at me and try to kill me when I'm praying this prayer.
Not a good idea.
Yeah.
What do you think, Chris?
Oh,
demons. Like, would you agree with that type of explanation, or do you have a little bit of a different interpretation?
I think I'm going to go one level deeper. I do think that and I'll just say this. I was going to resist saying it, but like when two people have sex and their bodies become one, that concept of demons, like you pick up that energy when you're with a person. I wish that wasn't necessarily true, but it is, I believe.
Wait, every time?
Well,
I think it's one person.
I was going to say, if I have sex with like a nice girl, I mean, I'm not going to like suddenly start speaking in tongues or some shit, right?
I mean, I don't know. You'll have to let me know. I mean, I don't.
If it's Kenneth Copeland's daughter, maybe.
Listen, I ain't touching that with them football, but
it's you when you're. I mean, it's when two bodies become one, right? In that sense, right? And it's something that's necessarily like it says designed for marriage that you can pick that kind of stuff up. So like, I went through this exercise that a guy that's mentoring Nathan and I'm just being super vulnerable here, man. Like he was like, go through every woman you've ever slept with in your head. Yeah. And ask God to remove like spirit, soul, body, those 3 levels. And there's biblical references for that.
The ones that are bad or just all of them?
All of them. All of them.
One of, if not the most common DMs I get on Instagram are many of you asking me what my favorite books are. Well, today's your lucky day, because if you use the link in my description below to join my newsletter, I'm going to give you my top 10 book recommendations right now. Also, if you'd like to join my clipping community for a chance to make money producing content from the show, you can do so via the Discord link in my description below. And finally, you can join my Patreon for early uncensored releases of the full episodes via the Patreon link in my description below. As always, please take 1 second to hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. I really appreciate that. Also, the like button's a big help, and you can join my newsletter via the link in the description.
Yeah, to remove that, right? Because there's still an attachment that's there, whether that's good or bad.
Okay, so you're not defining it as good or bad.
No, I'm just saying like whatever that is, right? But there's an attachment that's there. But oftentimes, like all of us have bad energy within us. We're not perfect, right?
Yeah.
So you do pick up bad with just about anything, right?
Yeah. What I was tracking when you were explaining this, Nate, is like you're using the term energy legit, and I'm thinking also vibes. And I actually kind of like what you're saying. I didn't have the experience like you did or anything, but rather than, what you see in the movie was some gargoyle infesting inside of someone's soul and being sucked out. It's not that. It's like, if there are bad intentions around you, whatever that is, where someone's given in to from the simplest shit to the more serious shit, the most serious type stuff, then that energy can infect you if you let it in your life. And that in and of itself is like a demonic.
Yeah. So like a good, I believe in angels too. Like when I was on my life flight back, when I was 16, I fully remember this white being just sitting right above me. It's the only thing I remember those 2 weeks. And it was on the plane the whole flight back. And it could have been the nurse. I don't know, but all I remember is this thing never left me the whole flight back. And then as soon as I went into the ambulance on the runway, it went away.
There's things in the world that cannot be explained, right? Whether it be something like that during a traumatic event or things lining up in a weird way. Sometimes just like weird patterns. And you're like, wait, why were they at that thing when I'm at that thing? And whatever it is, I don't know. I'm not God and I can't define that. But that's my one real pushback with people who are just like a pure atheist. I'm like, how does it all come from nothing? I just can't. Maybe it's beyond my human ability to comprehend that could be the case. I don't know. Even if there's 10 quadrillion layers between me and whatever's at the top, I have no idea. It could be 1, could be 10 quadrillion or whatever the number is. It's like there's some energy there, and there's something that sometimes puts things in your path that you're like, you either need to say no to or say yes to or say thank you to. Yeah. And that might be that example right there. And I don't think that's what I'm saying. I don't, the demon and angel thing, even if it's just more symbolic rather than literal, I'm okay with that. I think there's something to it though, for sure.
Have you felt that in your life? Like just these moments, like where you have like this,
absolutely.
Like, I gotta get rid of this.
And sometimes I blow it too with good situations. And I'm like, damn it, like that was there for me to do something, and I didn't do something with that. And then I think about the probability, like the math in my head of that thing having been in that situation. I'm like, that was so low, and that happened, and that's the third time that's happened in a week, and I blew that. It's like, I definitely think there's something there. Even if you go like beyond to like dream states, like deja vus and stuff. I mean, come on, like where's that coming from? That happens to me once a month. Wow. Minimum. Yep, I'll get one. I've been in this studio before and had people say stuff, and in my head I'm saying the words before they say it. That, and I see that, and I'm like, nah, that's not. I don't do mushrooms. You know what I mean? Like that's not that. So, what's going on there? Like I try. I'm sure I fail plenty of times, but I try to be humble in the face of what I don't know. That's how I live my life, and like. I try to live my life and do way more good than bad, and try to learn from when I do things that are wrong, because I'm gonna have to answer to something. Yeah. And whatever that is, I hope that's gonna be a very good day for me. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, there's this. I can't remember who. who said this, but it's an atheist, and it was an atheist and a Christian, and they were debating. They're pretty well known.
Jordan Peterson.
I can't remember. But
Richard Dawkins and
it might have been Dawkins, but the conclusion was like, hey, we both put faith in something. Even if you're atheist, you're putting faith in your faith in that idea. Mm-hmm. And so we both have faith.
Yes.
So hey, when I die, if nothing happens, what a crappy way to live like Jesus, helping people. Being there for people, you know, I'm being facetious here. It's like, I'd much rather have believed in something than nothing. And then, hey, if I wake up in heaven, or or my energy goes back. Like I see it as, I'm like, we were just with Blurry Creatures. I don't know if you know that podcast. Rad dude. His name's Luke Rogers. And he's all about the weird things. And then he correlates it to scripture. So like Bigfoot, Nephilim, giants, and he has all these really unique, like extraterrestrials. He has all these brilliant scientific minds on his show. But we were talking about like this idea of energy. And okay, if there's a creative energy out there that created everything, our solar system, us, and it created this out of love, it just wants its energy back. And I fully, like, this is just this idea, and I talked with Ard Louis about this, like, when I die, isn't that just my soul going back? You know what I mean? Like, my physical body dies, the matter of my body dissolves, and it goes into some other brilliant animal or plant, but that energy, that sliver, just kind of goes back to the creator. And I'm like, that's just this visual I have in my mind right now, is like this energy that's outside of our dimensions. But it created this, it breathed, as the Bible story goes, it breathed life into our nostrils, and it just wants, that life's going to go back home. Yeah. And in the interim, you and I, Julian, can connect in a deeper realm than just well, now they're seeing like plants talk and everything, communicate. It's like everything's in this form of communication, but it's like, maybe it's that energy in you and energy in me talking to each other. Maybe it's Chris's energy and him and in me talking to each other. That's not even our own energy. When I saw my daughter be born and I just broke down out of sheer amazement and awe, that wasn't me. Like I was like, this energy is so much more powerful than anything I've ever.
Something was forcing you.
Something was allowing me to experience this overwhelming, like from my head to toe. And sometimes,
but that's not you.
It is. I think it's the energy in me allowing me to feel that. That is what ultimate love is. Seeing this pure, undefiled, like brand new life be born. I'm a big bow hunter, and even taking life like is so powerful for me. That it's like there's just this energy transfer and shift. And so I don't know why I went down that rabbit hole, but I love that idea of I'm going back one day, and no one knows what that back is, but I have faith in that back,
The point you make about if you were wrong and it turned out, insert your religious beliefs, whatever they are here, that's not exactly what it is when it's all said and done. If you use the good of what that's supposed to show in your life to put that forward, and let's be honest, there's also a beautiful, like even selfish aspect to that, which is that when you're doing good and helping people out, you feel great about it. If that's how you lived your life and you lived long and you're remembered as someone who left this world better than the way you found it, then who the hell cares what it is afterwards? That's not up to you. You know what I mean? And that's also, that veers towards kind of how I think about things. It's like, I don't know if this is right or that's right or that's right or they're all wrong or they're all a little bit right. I don't know, but your guess is as good as mine. But I do know, while there is plenty of gray area in the world, some that makes us more uncomfortable than others, there is an overall objective good and an overall objective not good, if that's what you want to call it. And like I want to lean on the good side of things. So that's kind of what's clocking me here. But no, that's interesting.
Golden rule, man.
Right?
Yeah.
Well, and I love this. I'm going to give you another first.
Okay.
I was waiting for Joe to take this one, but I'm going to give it here. So look at
Joe
Rogan. See Jesus on the pendulum. So Jesus is on a pendulum. Like everything's on a pendulum, right? Our politic, everything swings on a pendulum. So I see on this left side of the pendulum, my mom, conservative Christian woman, like believes every letter of the Bible is the literal word of God, even through translations and all that. And it's really hard for me to rationalize that. And then I can swing all the way to the other side of the pendulum of Jesus. And who is Jesus? He's a figure in history who had massive implications on society and the world. He was murdered, and that's it. The resurrection is faked. Pentecost is just folklore. The apostles who died and all those early bishops who died for a lie or died for a made up story, but whatever. But his life and his teachings pulled us from barbarism all the way to this day where you and I see each other as equal value and equal life, right? So I see Jesus on those pendulums. Wherever you fall in your quote unquote faith or idea of Christ is going to meet you there. Like, even if you just think he's a historical figure who taught grace lessons, and man, I want to be the good in the world, like you said. Like, you're over here, my mom's over here. You're on the same pendulum, actually. And Jesus will meet you there if you look at him and actually just read his teachings. And that's what I always encourage people to do, is like, just study his life like a history book. And the stuff you will glean out of that, you'll have, wherever you end up on that spectrum, like, that's where Christ will meet you, and you will be the good in the world. But right now, it's like, if we look at it like that, and we look at it like, okay, we're all going in that trajectory, and we all want to better our world. What does that mean? We're going to go back to the socialist conversation real quick. It means everything's equal. Well, if everything's equal, then how do I build my institution on top of this? You can't. Okay, so I have to differentiate myself from you, Julian. I have to differentiate myself from Chris. So what does that mean? Well, now I have to find differences.
I'm a brand.
You're a brand. You're one of 50,000 denominations of Christianity now. It started with one. And it's because we have to be different. When in reality, Christ is saying, we're all one and the same.
That's heavy, man.
Yeah.
Now, you had said something earlier, because I do want to get back to Copeland and the full investigation you did, but I've had something in the back of my mind that we got off very early on that was interesting. You were making a draw between, I want to say it was in the 60s, where they were coming up with the code of how to declare yourself a church or religion, and you just kind of tossed in there on the side that, the CIA was invented in the 40s. Why did you say that? What was the tie between those two?
I got a call maybe, can't remember now.
Several
months ago from an unknown block number. And I don't know why I answered this one, but I did. Maybe I was in a good mood. I don't know. And I answered this call. And it was a gentleman who goes, hey, I've watched a lot of what you're doing. What do you know about the 14-point checklist? And so I gave him kind of my history spiel, because I had sat down with the gentleman that oversaw the nonprofit sector for 5 years at the IRS. So basically like the leading brain at the IRS to oversee 1.5, well, not 1.5 because that's global, almost $1 trillion in individual donor giving every year. So that's not including government grants. So this guy is like the brain that understands it all. So I regurgitated to this gentleman on the other line, hey, this is where it started. This is how it has come about. And he goes, okay, why would the U.S. government want to build that box? And I'm like, well, what do you mean? And he goes, is Christianity dangerous? And I said, yeah, true Christianity is super dangerous. And people ask why. And I go, well, these few thousand people without weapons transformed Rome. Islam is dangerous. True Islam is dangerous. The Ayatollah, look what it's done to the Middle East. True religion, whatever you believe, is dangerous. Okay, well, if religion is dangerous, governments can't control it. So the government needs something to control organized religion. So they built the box with 14 points that you just need to check off. To get someone to climb into the box, we're going to give you tax exemption, so you save some money. That box holds everything. Islam and Christianity is like oil and water. It does not mix. So we need everything in a box that plays by the same rules. Now we can put that box on the shelf, and any politician or any president or any political party that's in power can pull that box off and move it where they need it to go. And if you step outside of that 14 points, you lose your tax exempt status.
What do you mean move it where they need it to go?
This is where we call it the death rattle in the show. It's happened in history before, but when religion and politics combine, usually it's either the political power is losing authority or the majority religious power is losing authority. And so right now, Christianity is trying to shove its moral compass and its moral authority down through the political structure. Mm-hmm. You can see it in DC right now.
100%. And
it's because they've abdicated their moral authority from the pulpit. The church is no longer looking like the church. The pastor doesn't look like a shepherd. They look like a celebrity. They have lost their moral authority and their moral high ground. So they're trying to do it from DC. And this happens all throughout history and everywhere. And so right now, you've got the death rattle going in DC. But if and basically what that means is reform is coming. It doesn't mean necessarily anything's dying physically. It just means reform to a system, whether that be political or religious, is coming. And so reform is coming. You can hear the death rattle clanking around. And so if I am right or left, I don't care. I want to be able to use that where I need to use it. Mm. If true Christian, or I want to be able to place it where I need to place it, if that makes sense. And yeah, we're going down a fascinating rabbit hole here, which, well, I can't speak to it, but I'm saying, as Islam grows in the US, like I said, it's oil and water. So
yeah, why do you say that? It's oil and water? Because they do believe like Jesus was a prophet.
They do believe Jesus was the prophet. Yeah. I actually have great conversations with Muslims. One of my favorite restaurants in Utah is owned by this great Muslim guy named Mohammed. And
shout out Mo.
Shout out Mo, bro. Best ribeye in the business.
Wait, are they allowed to make that?
Halal.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, the wrong religion. Sorry. I love halal food.
No, he does sell bacon. Can they have bacon?
I don't think so.
You're looking at me like I know.
I'm not an expert. I don't think so.
Okay.
Capitalistic Muslim right there.
Just trying to make a buck.
Mo, you're the man. But what I mean by that is like theologically, it's oil and water. Mm. And how can I say this? Christians are meant to love their enemies. Christianity doesn't. We have to be different, is what I'm saying.
Oh, okay, that's interesting. So Christianity, the institution, doesn't.
Correct.
But individual Christians, if they followed the Bible, are supposed to.
Correct. That's why I call myself a Christ follower. And I know it's kind of silly, but it's like the term Christian has so much stigma attached to it that I'm like, I'm a Christ follower. Like I believe in Christ. I follow Christ.
Okay.
Yeah.
Who came up with the name Christian?
I don't know. The original
Jesus never said you're a Christian.
Yeah, no, the original group of Christians called themselves followers of the way.
Yeah.
Mm. They said, I follow the way.
Yeah. Because that's what he called himself.
Mm-hmm. I don't know in Christianity
I mean, that's the English term as well. I mean, I'm just looking at it like you take Christ and then you throw the Ian on it.
Yeah.
Like all these other terms. I don't know.
Yeah.
But like what did they call it when they were in Greece? And what's the phonetic laws there with how they do that? I don't know. I'd have to get my boy Nico on the phone. Mm-hmm. But that's interesting.
From a government perspective, think if you have two very contrasting religions like Christianity and Islam. And that's the thing. Like I have great conversations with my Muslim friends. Like I walk into Islamic mosques and I'll talk to imams. I think it's fascinating to me. Most Christians are terrified of those buildings.
Terrified.
Absolutely terrified of them. Yeah. They see it as like, the enemy's coming to the States. And so it could create a massive problem, or it already is. But so why you need them both in a box, in the same box?
Yeah, I think a big part of it, looking at it from the outside, is just some of the cultural things, where in strict forms of Islam, you have women that are completely covered up. It's not Western. I think sometimes you make an equivalence, and it's fair to do it, between like Westernism and Christianity, because that is a huge part of what built the West. And so when you see something coming in that in this case is in the form of another religion that is different than those values on that level, some people have a certain type of reaction to that. And I guess that's just culturally how we're wired.
Well, cultures, like some cultures don't mix either.
Sure.
It's and that's why assimilation, like now we're just getting into geopolitics and
no,
immigration.
like how often do you see a Turk marry an Armenian? I'm sure it happens, but like,
yeah,
you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's cultures are oil and water too. We are a culture that respects women's freedoms, whether you agree with all of them or not. Whether that be, pro-life or pro-choice or whatever. But America is a culture, Western democracies are cultures of equality,
sure.
Basically. Islam is not a culture of equality. And so that right there is oil and water.
Yeah.
And yeah, I don't want to speak too much to the political side, but so that's what I'm saying is oil and water. And so that's why if you can put dangerous faiths into a box and kneecap them basically, then that box can be moved. It can be weaponized.
And you can use it as a psyop, a psychological weapon if need be.
Or you look at, the Johnson Amendment and what's going on right now.
The Johnson Amendment.
The Johnson Amendment is an amendment that basically said, hey, if you have tax exempt status, you cannot endorse candidates from the pulpit. And then only a small percentage, and I can't remember the exact percentage, of your revenues can go to fundraising and lobbying. And if you give more money than is allotted, or if you endorse, your tax exemption could be threatened. So that you could see that as kneecapping, but when was it established, the Johnson Amendment? The 70s. What do we got?
Yeah.
54. Even okay.
Way back.
Yeah. So 1954. So the Johnson Amendment.
Trump has sought to repeal the provision.
Well, he did technically. So the IRS just came out and said, we will no longer come after you if you endorse candidates from the pulpit or if you lobby. So religions or churches in particular can now be platforms for political campaigns, and technically they can be fundraising arms for politicians. So they've officially weaponized the church, whether that be right or left.
This is a crazy, crazy rabbit hole to go into, because it affects politics, where politics gets, in my opinion, like bastardized and mixed up with religion as well. A great example is Benjamin Netanyahu. You have to give him a ton of credit for, and I don't like this, but you got to see what he did. Like if you have read books about him, read his own biography, which is like fucking 1,200 pages or whatever it is. The guy, he's a long-winded dude. But like, this guy was openly setting up alliances in the United States with evangelical Christians for decades before going over to Israel and taking power, and then pulling back on that thread to funnel money and completely warped political beliefs, if I may say so myself, where they use the Bible to try to justify things that are not justifiable, and also completely change what it is. That's why you have someone like Ted Cruz come out and talk about the Bible says we have to respect Israel, when the Israel of the Bible is not the country that was created in 1948. That's 100%. That's objectively
that
the
wasn't
fucking
Ted's
case.
Greatest moment.
Yeah, no, I could think of a few of those. But, I see this, and it's particularly jarring and hilarious, like darkly hilarious, when you consider the fact that like Benjamin Netanyahu is an atheist. He thinks religion's funny. Like even practicing Jews, don't believe that stuff. But the minute you need some war war whistles to go off, he'll get up there and say, Amalek tells us that we must bomb Gaza. And like, he expects to pull back on that thread. So when I see like American churches, whether they're mega church, I don't care what they are, that have like ties to that and are getting up there on a pulpit and saying, hey, this is right. something tells me, I don't care who you were. Something tells me Jesus didn't like what people did on October 7th, and something tells me he doesn't like what they're doing in Gaza right now, and I don't make any distinction between the two. And yet politically, money seems to funnel back and forth within our own government and other governments that leads religious figures to become political figures who are just talking heads for people who are doing everything that is against what Jesus teaches.
Mm-hmm.
Amen, brother.
Brilliantly said, yeah. Politics and religion run in parallel veins, and the veins are crossing right now, like I said in the death rattle, and they will cling on to any politic and religion will cling on to any power they can. And like, thankfully, we live in one good side of technology is you can learn about all this stuff very quickly.
Yes.
And so I'm going to reiterate, the Israel of the Old Testament is not the government that is currently in power.
That's right.
And that goes back to this concept of actually picking up the Bible and reading it. Because I'm not here to say whether Ted Cruz has or he hasn't, but when he referenced what he was taught in preschool about the Bible as his theology, that says that you've got a pretty weak foundation on what the Bible actually says. And you're making some pretty large bets there, Senator Cruz.
Well, he's making big bets with money he's been paid too. That's the thing, and it's always tough. Adam Friedland just did a brilliant podcast with Congressman Richie Torres, because this is both sides of the aisle with this problem, and it's a very strange thing when you watch someone who objectively has a brain up there make a facial expression in response to listening to a question where you can see, you could have the TV on mute and watch their face and know that in their head right now, the thought that's going in there is, well, I know what I want to say, but what can I say? When you see that, it's over. Yeah. And Adam did an incredible job. He wasn't even trying to, it just happened, where it was very clear that there were, some lobbying type reasons why Richie Torres could not give what should be the obvious answer and instead gave the Captain Idiot answer on certain things. And you have Friedland, who's also a Jewish guy, by the way. Dude, can't we objectively agree on something here? The difference between Torres, though, and a Ted Cruz and some of the people we're talking about, though, is I would argue that my expectations for politicians are low. You know what I mean? My expectations for people who are leading a religious movement trying to follow Christ are high. And unfortunately, people like you are proving that my expectations should be markedly lower.
Yes. One thing, my brother, who's brilliant, big student of the Bible, loves checking Hebrew against Greek, against Aramaic, against, the translations. He's very brilliant, and spends hours a day doing this. The dude gets up at 3:30 every day and just studies this. He's going verse by verse across translations. It's incredible.
In the afternoon?
No, in the morning.
Okay. Make sure.
Yeah. And we had a great conversation the other day about convictions. And whether you have political convictions or religious convictions, as soon as you, and I always use this word abdicate, as soon as you abdicate your conviction for the system you're a part of, you're done. And so I've come to the conclusion that every single paid pastor in the world abdicates their convictions for the institution.
No matter how much money they take.
No matter how much money they take at some point. If you're a full-time pastor. If you're a bivocational pastor who has a job outside, who might take a small stipend from the church, that's different because your livelihood is not totally dependent on the system. Okay. But if your livelihood is dependent on the continuation of an institution, you'll eventually abdicate some part of your convictions to it. And as soon as you especially in religion, as soon as you abdicate a little bit of your faith, you're done. You're compromised because you are now a byproduct of the system. And I think it's similar in politics, right? The founding fathers believed that our politicians should be servants of the people. They come into that public role, stay for a bit, and then they go back to their farm or their job and continue to work. Yeah. They are servants of the people. And so my uncle was a multi-term congressman. He led the impeachment trials on Bill Clinton. And he would say the same thing. You go in with good intentions, and as soon as you abdicate on your belief or convictions a little bit, you're a byproduct of the system. And then God forbid you've been there for 40 years or 50 years, you know, and you're worth $300 million or whatever. Like you have no authority anymore to speak from the position you are, because you're just a byproduct of the system. So politics and religion eats everybody that hops into it at the moment.
Yeah, I was talking with Alessi, the other guy I was talking about earlier, who used to be the producer in here and now does the content. I was talking with him earlier because he had listened to your whole Sean Ryan podcast and really enjoyed it, by the way, and thought you made a lot of amazing points. And he's like a really religious guy. And so one of the things he was saying is he's like, the one part that I was like, I don't know how that could possibly work is similar to what you're saying now, which is that if someone's going to be a full-time pastor, they're just at some point, there's going to be something where you abdicate your beliefs for the future. He's like, if you're going to be a pastor, you have to be available to your congregants. You have to be there, not just preaching. You got to be there for people in need. You got to go do house calls and something like that. You are filling your life with it. So he's like, I don't know how you can't make any money doing that. And I thought about it and I didn't want to agree with him because I'm with you. I'm like, I don't think you should make any money on God. That's just what I believe. But from a perspective of if you are actually going to serve your full congregation and you legit don't have time for a part-time job because of that to supplement your income, what is the way around that? I don't have an answer.
That right there is tradition and culture as well. Nowhere in the Bible does it say you should be a full-time pastor. Give up everything else. It doesn't say it. We've created that role in the institution, and now we fall back on it to justify it. And it's really tough to like, because most of my formative memories, and I used to call them my best memories as a kid, but now I call them my formative memories because they're not really the best memories. It's the bias that I was raised in, but came from the institution, if that makes sense. And so, hey, why do we need that full-time youth pastor? Well, because my kids need to be taught the Bible. Shouldn't I be teaching my child the Bible?
What if you're not the best person to do that?
Then my life is out of order and I need to get in order. And this is something one of our mentors says too. Look at your life, Nathan. And this was the most terrifying. He's like, look at your life, terrifying. Nathan. And what part of your life is out of biblical order? And I was like, oh crap. Like there's a lot of it, you know? And he's like, most of your problems come because your life is out of order. And when you look at the church, the institution, it's all out of order. We've just built roles because the institution demanded that role. We built the institution that now needs that role. And so your friend, like, or your editor, like, I feel like he's almost he's almost come to understand it, but it's still, to Christ's point, in most of the Gospels, we've built traditions and call it doctrine. I have everything I need to understand that book. I've got 2 eyes that work, like a mouth that can speak. And we abdicate our roles so much. Like I abdicate my role for teaching my daughter the scriptures. I abdicate my role for prayer because I'm tired with her. I abdicate my role to make sure like she's learning what I think she should learn in schools because I don't have time. It's like same thing. Yeah, I don't want to go down too many rabbit holes, but it's like in America, we've cluttered our lives so much that we forgot making the main thing, which is family. And so I
agree with that.
I need to take, so that's why we always say our first ministry, like when you look at biblical ministry, is my family. Like if I cannot find time to teach my daughter the scriptures and I believe this is my salvation, like Christ is, my order is way off.
You know what though? And this does need to be said, and I'm not saying your order's not off with that, but I'd love your guys' thoughts on this. 30 years ago, I believe in the American dream. I believe it's still alive. I believe this is the best place to live. I think you can go make something of yourself, and I'd like to think, there's plenty of examples out there listening right now of you guys who can attest to that. That said, I would never argue with the fact that the deck has been stacked much harder than it used to be. And if we're looking at the post 9/11 world, but more specifically the post financial crisis world, and the world since the beginning of the 1980s, when you can go back and see that V form on the chart where the middle class gets legislated away. We are now in a position where society has generationally placed all these expectations on people and families to the point that families are being monetized away. People can't afford to have kids. And then the people that do, well, guess what? They got to pay the bills, and their check hasn't, their salary hasn't kept up with the inflation that's happened over the past even 10 years, to the point that they struggle not only to put food on the table, but how the fuck am I going to put a kid through college or whatever? And so maybe they haven't, if they're a Christian or something like that, or any religion, they haven't fully prioritized the North Star of their religion, but through no fault of their own, the world has sent so many challenges their way that hasn't even been a realistic option. And I know that's like not as like
the rabbit hole. The rabbit hole. I was like, I don't want to go down this rabbit hole. Was dual income, the need for dual income.
Okay, well, let's go down it.
Because I gotta piss. Can I go?
Oh yeah. We'll be right back. Just tell me next time.
Yeah. I'm like, oh man.
On both. All right, we're back. Before we get into that, we're going to talk about dual income and something like that. We just got off air and saw we're recording this. Charlie Kirk just got shot, and it's, I don't know, it was an hour ago. So this is coming out probably a couple weeks after we record. So hopefully there was some sort of good outcome here. But that did not look good. And like, I don't care what you think about what people say or what you agree with or not. There's just something really broken in society that stuff like this happens. You know, everyone right now is fighting over also what happened to that poor girl on that train the other day in Charlotte. It was just viciously attacked. And it's just like, I got the picture outside the studio, Bill the Butcher from Gangs of New York, and that's the scene where he's looking at Leonardo DiCaprio and non sequitur says civilization is crumbling. And I really am an optimist, but sometimes it's hard not to look at that and wonder, like, man, was that movie they were making while September 11th was happening, you know, really onto something there?
Yeah, that's the most horrific. Like I am just disgusted at that, and you know, I didn't know Charlie, or I don't know Charlie personally, but that society is just crumbling, and it's So my prayers are with Charlie and his family, and I know our prayers are, because it's just so sad. Like, you have a father, you know, I always say to people who are dissenters against our opinion or whatever, is we're just on the opposite sides of the same coin. Like, you and I are actually brothers or sisters or whatever. And we were talking about that freaking sliver in you and in me. And when we don't see that, when everything is chance, Julian, when life doesn't fucking matter, like, I'll go out guns blazing. And that's what we're missing, is we're missing hope, and we're missing that sliver in you and sliver in me and sliver in Charlie, whether I agree with Charlie or not. Like, he is created for something bigger than just chance. And we take it, you know, just like that horrific thing on the train. Like, when we have no hope, we just have no value in life. And so I think it's ironic that we were talking about the pendulum with Jesus and where you fall in that pendulum, because it's like, when Christ says, I am the way, the truth, and the life, like, that's what I believe society is missing right now. And you know,
that's order.
Yeah. It's just so sickening to see.
I just have a pit in my stomach. I don't.
Where does this, like you mentioned this, right? Like, society is crumbling, and that's like within our America. Like, and you see all these, yesterday there was the strike in Qatar. You know, Qatar had just donated that plane to Trump, right? And they're investing a lot of money in the United States, and then they got struck, and then you have all these nations across the world that are fighting each other, and then we have all this inner fighting going on within the United States. Like, where do you think this goes? I
mean, I'm a YouTuber, so I don't know. You know,
but you say that, but you've dedicated your life and career to like a lot of these issues, right? And researching and talking about them and interviewing different people and from different walks of life, right? Like,
yeah.
Do you think we end up in a civil type war here?
again, I'm an optimist. Are there things that I'll say like, oh, I'm cynical about this or that, and I really am? Yes, but like I do like to see the good in people. I don't think we would end up in something like that, and I'm very careful about bringing. That is a big term, and part of it is also you can't get caught up in the world you live in. I live in a world where a job of mine is to understand what's happening on the internet. And there's a lot of people who care about that, but there's a lot of people who don't. And I've always talked about this Wawa theory. When I was living in my parents' house during COVID for 3.5 years building this thing, I was sociable in the fact that people came through the house. But I locked myself off from the world while I was building this. And so one of the rare respites, or whatever, if that's a proper use of that term, I would get is when I would pick up guests from the airport. On the way home, we'd stop at Wawa, and I'd, get them whatever they wanted before the podcast. And when things were getting weird, I mean, they were weird the whole time, but when shit would be going down online, I would just watch people in the Wawa, and I would see the pink-haired girl with 3 nose rings holding the door for the guy with the Nam hat. And there was no like, or anything like that. I was like, oh, thank you so much. And people went about their life. And I realized, I'm like, those two people, if they were behind keyboards right now, if they are, would probably be dehumanizing each other. But in the real world, it's not the keyboard. Sometimes, though, we see that come out in like what we just saw, and that's what scares me. That's where I worry about, like, would people go in the streets with stuff, and I don't want to see that, and I think I take it really seriously to have whatever responsibility I have doing what I do, to have voices represented across the spectrum of different ideas. Obviously, I'm a generalist. I do a lot of different topics, but also to try to not go to extremes with, what, regardless of what side it's on, with people who have extreme beliefs, and that's for someone else to do. You know what I mean? I like to think the average person is the average person, and we'll be all right. That's kind of my long-winded answer. But yeah, when you see stuff like that, it's, that's horrific.
But that's brilliantly said, and that goes back to that sliver in each of us. That blue-haired earring, 3 earrings girl, like, respects the dignity of this other individual, and vice versa. And that's literally what the true church is supposed to be. It's supposed to be this organic body that moves through these shitty systems that we've built, these vulnerable, like, greed and ego-driven systems. And when the church isn't the church, everything else goes to shit. And the church is not the church. And it's like, that's all I can say to that literally disgusting video. And then the other one of the girl on the train. The church has totally lost its way. And so how can any other system find its way if the literal beacon of light is dark as hell?
Well, like, you defined it well today when you separate church from like physical church or organizational church or whatever. You're saying the church is supposed to be like, and I'm paraphrasing here, but it's really supposed to get the core of what it is, which is the belief in like Jesus and God and doing things the right way. I think, as annoying as it is to see some of these organizations take advantage of this, and you guys are doing a great job exposing that, as you should. If I were looking at it from your perspective as like true Christians who want the right things, you do have to say, in the last 2 or 3 years, whatever it is, I don't know, but there's a massive movement publicly, and I would say, like, even to define it, like on social media, of like people becoming Christians or becoming spiritual or becoming religion and, turn into something that's higher than themselves. And you know what? Sometimes I'll see it and I'm like, someone feels like a bandwagon jumper. But a lot of times I see it and I'm like, dude, good for that person. They seem like they're really into that and they found some peace. And there's something in the world. Maybe it was COVID itself or whatever came with that. I don't know. Something in the world maybe moved that in that direction. Do you see that too?
When that happens, that creates one of the most vulnerable bodies of people. Maybe you can call it baby Christians, but Nathan, if you want to talk a little bit about like the scriptural references to that, along with like why Jesus said that was such a protected group.
Yeah. Jesus said, I'd rather have a millstone hung around someone's neck and thrown into the water and kill him, than lead a baby astray or lead a child astray. And he was speaking about young Christians. So when you find faith, you have the utmost joy, which we see all over social media. Where do you go from there? If you walk into Hillsong or one of these mega churches, like you're officially about to be fed a false gospel, something that looks nothing like Christ.
Right.
So I feel like our role is more important than ever, the religion business role, because we're here. I believe we're preaching the gospel. I believe we're preaching who Christ is, how we should live our life. And that's what this whole wave of young baby Christians needs to hear. They need to know that, hey, read the Bible cover to cover. It's actually not that hard when you read it as a history book because it comes alive. Like, start praying. Get in prayer alone. Those two things are the greatest tools for you to expand your faith and deepen your faith. And like, there was a Stanford study done. There was a mega church out of Chicago, one of the first in the U.S., 30,000 seats. To their hat, I tip my hat to leadership at this time. I think it was 98 or late 90s. They hired Stanford and their economists to study how their congregants could deepen their faith, because congregants were kind of frustrated. It was a conveyor belt, and this is the danger of these systems. These baby Christians come in, sit for 6 months, give their money. It's all like fun and games, and then they just stop coming.
Yeah.
The only reason why they keep their numbers up is because a new person sits in that seat for 6 months and then leaves. New person sits in that seat and leaves. And so the church was like, dang, how can we retain these amazing young believers, and how can we deepen their faith? Stanford does this in-depth study. I think it was over 2 years. They come back with two things: read your Bible alone and pray alone. That's how you deepen your faith. Everything else is just man-made tradition. And so I'm just trying to correlate it back to Charlie. Like, you are right. There's this huge wave of, a lot of pastors are screaming revival, but it's like, revival to what? Like, to singing more songs?
Right.
To giving you more money? Like, unless the person's heart is changed and they live out, because it says faith without works is dead, and they live out carrying that cross. That's what the world needs more than ever right now. The world needs literally people that are willing to sit with that dude who's so broken that he feels his only resort is to shoot Charlie. Like, that dude needs to be like loved on. Somewhere in his life, his ecclesia, there was no body around him. And so he just gave up, and he goes, this is the last thing. That career criminal who stabbed that poor girl, like, that is demonic. Like,
yeah,
let's talk about demons right now. Like,
that was my thought there.
Yeah. Anytime you feel you need to pull a weapon and shoot a guy sitting in the chair, no matter how much you disagree with him, there is something evil there.
He looked like when you're watching it on the footage, it looked like a character like in a Joker movie. Like, just starts playing with the knife. She's not doing anything, and then just. And it's just, yeah, that's is impossible to see that stuff and not wonder how far back the fork in the road went wrong. Because guess what? It wasn't yesterday. I mean, we know that for a fact, but like, and we were just saying off camera, someone who shoots Charlie Kirk like that is obviously someone who doesn't like what he has to say. You want to immortalize someone, do that to them. You want to make what they have to say carry that much more weight. If you don't like it, do that. I mean, it's having that. It's going to have the opposite effect.
Yeah.
One thing that was fascinating. Nathan was talking to Sean Ryan, and I think you had a conversation with a former MS-13 member, and this concept of you're 10 bad decisions away from murder. Would you mind breaking that down, bro?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I spent a lot of time in Mexico and Central America back in the day, and I did get a comment wrong, the train name. There's a train that runs from the Guatemala border to the U.S. border, and it's called the Beast. And gangs run it, and basically you climb on top. It's a transport train for produce and all that, and you climb on top, and it'll just take you all the way to the border. And certain gangs run certain lines, and you have to pay your way. And so I interviewed a girl who was trying to get to America, and she brought her little cousin along, and didn't tell her female cousin that you're going to be raped because you're my payment to get me to the border.
Oh my God.
And so I would go to there was a convent next to one of the stops. And so this convent would take anybody in, gang member, traveler, whoever. They would just love on anybody that walked through that door. And so I did a bunch of interviews, and then I got to this gang member, and he was young. I can't remember. I want to pull this footage, actually. It's on my LTO tapes from over 20 years ago, and I want to find it because I wasn't even thinking about bringing this up on Sean, but it just came. So we're going to pull this off these analog tapes. And I have my translator next to me because I didn't speak Spanish, and this guy's fluent in Spanish. And he's like, yeah, I was raised on the streets, was hungry, and MS-13 picked me up. They gave me food. And he goes, I'll tell you right now, and he was talking to me, are 10 steps away from murdering someone. And I was like, what do you mean? And he's like, you're 10 bad decisions in a row away from murdering someone. So you and I aren't that different, actually. And it like really rocked me. And I started looking at all my actions in life like that, and I always use the analogy of like road rage. I'm driving down the road, I carry, and some guy cuts me off, and I flip him off and honk. That's like bad decision 1. I should just let him go. Bad decision 2 is I pull up alongside him and tell him to pull over. Bad decision 3 is both of us get out of our car. He's armed too. You just see the escalation of ego and pride and all of this. And so I can't help but think like through this gunman, like what poor decisions and bad decisions did you make that you felt that was your conclusion?
Here's the one thing I would disagree with the MS-13 guy on. He might, and maybe I'm wrong here, maybe this isn't what he meant, but it seems like he's making the leap that like we're not that different because we're both capable of that. I think there is a huge difference between recognizing that all human beings, including yourself, are capable of the worst things if you go the wrong way, and understanding that there are a lot of choices that happen in most cases along the way to get there. It kind of reminds me of like that old Jordan Peterson thing where he's like, you could all be a Nazi, but like,
I haven't heard that one.
Where he's like, you have the capability of being one. And I think psychologically he's onto something there. The idea that you would actually full blown become that, you can't know until you get the opportunity to do that. And do you make this the A or B decision? Then do you make the next A or B decision? Are you making the right one or the wrong one? But to be aware of the capability, your capacity to be a monster,
100%.
Yes, it's real.
100%. Yeah. And so I just look at this guy and I'm like, he looks like a grandpa, when he's like bald, white hair. It's like white, like you look like ironically, it's Utah, which is just gnarly to think about. But yeah, we are in charge of our own decisions, but what leads a guy to do that? Like,
I don't know.
There's a pastor that is up in the Pacific Northwest, right? That he came out on his last sermon or whatever, and he said that somebody was trying to put a hit on him because of what he was speaking up against.
Yeah.
So I mean, this stuff's like running all over.
Yeah. So it's like I know it's super cliche, but what the world needs right now is Jesus. And we're all and we're all supposed to pick up our cross and follow him, which means, hey, like if we were actually acting like there's 2.3 billion Christians in the world. Christians own 55% of the world's wealth. Like, and we can get into the positive side, I guess, here, but it's like, I live in the Mecca of Mormonism. Like, how is there so much hate and so much homelessness and so many problems right in like Utah's backyard, which is, they're supposed to be the light on the hill. They're the temple. And it's like all the money and resources silo at the top. And all I can think when I look at that is just people have no hope.
Yes. That's why I was asking you earlier, like what makes someone eventually follow that? And or like go to Kenneth Copeland or whatever, and you were saying, well, you know, they could start at 12 and it's very hard for people to admit they're wrong. But also the people that maybe don't have that traumatic event I was referring to have happened to them, who are just, you know, 24 years old and going through a tougher time and looking for something. They go there and they feel something because that day they get caught the right way. Then it becomes a part of their belief system, and they assume they overlook all the other stuff that could come with that. And again, that does not make them stupid. We are all susceptible to something like that, and they could fall for something like Kenneth. But that's why it's important, like what you guys are doing, to point that out with your documentary. But before I get you out of here, I do want to talk about when you guys actually confronted this, because it was amazing work with Tommy G. First of all, how did you get connected with Tommy? What was I forgot to ask him.
Tyler.
A guy named Tyler Sherman who
Come on.
Yeah, you know Tyler. He's a legend, right?
Everybody knows Tyler. Yeah. Tyler calls you up and goes, hey, yeah, would you be interested in talking with Tommy G? He does a documentary on you. Okay, I'll let him know right now.
So
yeah, that's literally
exactly
he's
what
that
happened.
good.
Yeah, he's that good.
Yeah.
Shout out Tyler.
Yeah.
Thank you guys for checking out this clip. If you haven't already subscribed, please subscribe and hit the like button on this video. It is a huge, huge help. And if you'd like to check out this clip's full podcast episode, that link is in the description below or right here. And finally, you can follow me on Instagram and X by using the links in my description below.